Hello, everyone. We will get started in a few minutes. Welcome to those of you who have joined. Give us a couple of minutes and we will start the session. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. We will get started in just 1 minute. Right. Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are dialing in. My name is Christine Svara. I'm the Executive Director of RISE, and I am very excited to be formally launching a piece of work that we've been working on together with many of you for the last couple of years. Our report, Shifting Perspectives to Accelerate Women's Advancement and Leadership in the Garment, Footwear and Textiles Industry. This report, as I said, is the result of the work of many. It's a real multi-stakeholder collaboration. It's been a process that's been engaging, most importantly, women workers, but also a whole range of industry stakeholders, research partners, and funders. Before we get going, I'd like to thank our funders, Bestseller and the Gates Foundation, and to also thank our partners in Bangladesh and India, Consigliere, Forum for the Future, GBL, and Colours Consulting. If you go to the next slide. We're going to be spending the next hour together, really digging into the different ways to expand both perspective, but more importantly, opportunities for women in the garment industry in terms of career pathways and leadership. To kick us off, my colleague Laura will take us through the key findings from the project, and we are then after that going to move on to a panel discussion, and I am excited to be joined by a group of really fantastic speakers. There will be a Q&A as part of the panel discussion, so I'm going to encourage all of you to submit questions using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. And you should know that this session is being recorded. If you go to the next slide, please. I am really pleased to be introducing my panel here, and we'll come back to all of the panelists in a minute after a short presentation from Laura, but I will be joined by Roshan Ara, who is a member and project director at Narapoko. I'll be joined by Alex Berryhill, Manager for Women's Empowerment and Human Rights at Gap Inc. Pleased to be joined as well by Shamsul Haq, Program Coordinator, Women's Leadership and Empowerment at Better Work, ILO, and by Priya Kvam, Director, Global Development from Forum for the Future, by Chitra Ramdas, Senior General Manager, Organizational Development at Shahi Exports. And as you can see, we've got a lot of panelists and a tight conversation, but we really want to make sure we get to your questions too. So another encouragement to put questions in the Q&A, either through Laura's presentation or as we go into the panel. Over to you, Laura.
Thanks, Christine. If we move to the next slide. Hi, everyone. Very excited to be here. So I wanted to start this presentation by showing you this quote, which clearly states that career progression in the industry is imperative for its competitiveness and sustainability, even more in the current uncertain times the industry is facing, and that it's not a secret for anyone today here in this webinar. And career progression in the industry is inevitably related to women's advancement and leadership, the topic of today's presentation and webinar. When businesses address women's advancement and leadership in their supply chain, they have the opportunity to grow. I have some examples of that. So McKinsey found that garment factories that provide leadership training for women, so profit margins grow by 15 to 20%. Companies have also increased productivity through this approach. There are some flagship leadership and advancement programs in the industry. We have some of our panelists working on those programs, and these programs have shown 22% increase in productivity after implementation, and they have also, some of them, reduced turnover in factories by 15%. Therefore, women's advancement and leadership, this strategy is not only the right thing to do, but a business advantage in the current uncertain and changing environments we are facing. So we move to the next slide. So to build this approach, we went to the source, as Christine was mentioning, and we consulted women workers in Bangladesh and in India on their views about advancement and leadership. As well, we asked them about their needs and aspirations. And after that, we supplemented these discussions with interviews and workshops with different stakeholders that you can see here in the slide. We did a mapping of 25 programs focusing on advancement and leadership of women in the industry, in the supply chain, from which we found that 95% of them focus mostly in promoting women from operators to supervisory roles. And after all of this, we co-created the interventions that we're going to be discussing today, these very concrete interventions with women workers and the stakeholders through 3 systems change and futures workshops in Dhaka, Delhi, and online. And we also did engage with women workers and stakeholders in Bangalore. In total, we engaged 80 stakeholders as part of this piece of work. If we move to the next slide. So let's talk a bit about the challenge that we're trying to address here. The main challenge identified by women workers in our conversations is that current advancement and leadership approaches from the industry are too narrow. The challenge is bigger than just providing a few opportunities for women to move to supervisory roles. And the testament to this is that many businesses, and we're going to be hearing from them today too, in the industry have set targets for women in supervisory roles. However, in some cases, despite their best efforts, they often struggle to meet these targets. Women want multiple and alternative pathways for advancement, of course, including in some cases supervisory roles, but in others, this means moving to more technical roles, for example, or roles that allowed for greater flexibility and, most importantly, for better income opportunities, what we have called in our research and in our report, horizontal advancement. So next slide. The reasons behind why the industry is falling short in providing advancement opportunities to women are complex and systemic. And we have Forum for the Future today, which is going to be talking about a systems change approach. And these stats show how systemic the issue is. In Bangladesh, only 9% of women are supervisors and managers, and the sector exhibits a clear gender-based occupational segregation. In north of India, for example, only 10 to 25% of women are doing advanced machine jobs, which are usually better paid roles than traditional feminized activities. So, of course, this also raises a question about the future of the industry and the future of women in this industry, when we are seeing that, for example, in Bangladesh, 60% of jobs are at risk of automation, and many of those jobs are today performed by women workers. So in a way, we could say that women are stuck to the production floor because of normative barriers that favor men workers. We had managers telling us through the research explicitly that they don't think women have the skills to manage advanced machines or that men make better leaders. These, in combination with unstructured employment policies and practices, where, for example, there is no clarity on how performance is assessed, make it very difficult for women to advance both vertically and horizontally in the factory floor. And if we add to all this recipe the unequal distribution of unpaid care and domestic work that exists in these countries and societies, which is often an issue that it's overlooked by the industry, the sticky floors for women become really, really sticky. I want to show you some quotes here in the next slide that just illustrate what I just told you directly from the voices of women workers. So I'll give you a few seconds to read these quotes. So if we move to the next slide, the question is what we can do about this and what the industry can do about this. And the key is to take a systemic approach, one that drives change at every level, from policy changes, as you see here in the slides, to shifting power dynamics, to transforming underlying mental models. We develop a set of interventions that are the ones that you see here that address all of these dimensions. That said, we recognize this may feel a little bit overwhelming at first, but breaking these interventions down into actionable steps makes meaningful progress possible for businesses. And this is what I'm going to show you in the next slide. So we have come up with these 3 buckets of interventions. The first one is complementing vertical advancement approaches with horizontal advancement, and how this looks in practice. So it looks like mapping jobs and skills for horizontal advancement and developing training programs that respond to that mapping. Some of the roles women workers identified during our research are roles in quality control, production management, cutting, sampling, pattern making, green and circular jobs. They also talk a lot about floating roles. In general, roles that will represent a rise in income or in overall well-being, a rise of their well-being in the workplace. It's also about designing talent management journeys and performance assessment frameworks for workers and factories to ensure that there's transparency, fairness, and standardization in the process and in the promotion processes. The second bucket of interventions include collaborating with women workers, and we have Nari Poco as part of our panel that we will be discussing how to meaningfully engage with women's organizations and workers as part of this work to design business practices that support women's advancement. So one concrete way is designing supplier scorecards that include the criteria around the extent to which suppliers have created the enabling conditions for women's advancement. For instance, whether they offer parental leave, childcare support, skilling interventions, amongst others interventions and items. We have a list of indicators in the report that you can consult. These might vary in each workplace, hence the need to work on these measurements hand in hand with women workers and workers' representatives overall. On the other hand, through this roadmap, we are encouraging also international buyers to work on their forecasting systems. This research shows that realistic and clear target setting might encourage more women to move to leadership positions or more complex roles, technical roles, since these will reduce the stress and the burden of performing these roles in the factory. In few words, better forecasting could contribute to designing jobs that fit women's needs and aspirations and jobs that they actually want to perform. And the last bucket of recommendations that we have here is around recognizing the economic and the business value of unpaid care and domestic work. This looks as working on childcare facilities that put workers at the center and their needs at the center, and test approaches for male engagement in unpaid care work and childcare too. This could be through training programs or partnership with community services. We also have a couple of examples of these kind of programs in the report. I'll stop here, and now I'd like to hand it over back to you, Christine, to facilitate the panel today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Laura. And everything that Laura has shared here is all in the report that you should all have access to. I think there's a link in the chat for that now. So the findings are clear. We really need to expand the view of, to expand the view of what's possible to start avoiding sticky floors. We absolutely have to bring women's perspectives to the center of this. And it requires collaborative effort between industry and women's organizations and unions and other stakeholders. It sounds so easy when you see it on a slide. I'm very pleased to be joined by my panelists here, and we'll have a bit of a conversation about the practicalities of some of it. And Priya, I'm going to come to you first. To a twofold questions about these, both around collaborative efforts, but also around the kind of horizons that we take when we look at this. So if you can say a bit about why collaboration across different actors is so critical for long-term success on this, but also as we put this research together, we use the future lens to deliberately consider not just the now, but the future work. And I think I'm probably speaking for many of us if I'm saying that we're working in very short horizons right now. Can you say also a bit about why applying longer horizons and future thinking in our approaches are so necessary?
Absolutely, and thank you, Christine, for having me, and to the RISE team. It's been a pleasure to collaborate through this initiative. So as you mentioned, collaboration is essential. Women workers do not operate in a vacuum. They're part of a deep, complex web of relationships, norms, and structures that many different actors play a role in perpetuating. So there are interrelationships that really make collaboration essential. And consultation and collaboration also illuminate challenges and preferences and build a shared vision of change and a shared understanding of potential pathways to get there. So for example, as Laura mentioned, engaging directly with women workers and their representatives through this inquiry revealed that women's advancement needs to be thought of horizontally as well as vertically, due to the appeal for many workers of gaining new skills and earning higher pay in specialized roles without disturbing household dynamics, potentially initiating jealousy or intimate partner violence within households. There's all kinds of deep-rooted structures, including patriarchal norms. And then when it comes to levers of change, I would reference the 6 conditions of system change framework, which was applied in this inquiry, which looks at both explicit changes related to policies, practices, resource flows, relational changes, power dynamics, how people relate to one another, and then transformative change at the deepest level relating to mental models. And all of these interventions need to be co-designed not just with women workers, but to have the buy-in of other supply chain actors like buyers, suppliers, and labor unions, and civil society organizations that advocate on behalf of women workers, not only to be implemented and be sustainable, but to have impact. So for example, one of the recommendations was to advocate for skills-based rather than education-based requirements for roles. Because these requirements tend to be standardized, it's important for buyers and suppliers to advocate for changes within industry associations and government bodies, and in partnership with labor unions and even HR and managerial staff in factories. There are all kinds of links across the chain. This is the same with alleviating the burden of unpaid care work. There are deep norms, deep structures. We need to be talking to partners. We need to be talking to factory managers, all kinds of stakeholders to shift this dynamic. And when we think about meaningful collaboration, it's not a one-off. It's grounded in mutual respect, in trust that we build over time. It's grounded in a vision of change and a theory of how that change could happen. And it's attentive to these power dynamics and to context, cultural context, socioeconomic, sociopolitical, and it ideally would be thoughtfully designed and facilitated, and that's where partnership comes in. And in the long run, you would hope that it would yield innovation, not just in terms of outputs, but outcomes. And then finally, turning to your question about the future lens. These industries are well established, long established, but they're also precarious in some ways. They're subject to macro trends like automation and the growth of AI, to climate change, including extreme heat, flooding. Bangladesh, for example, is extremely susceptible, and shifting international, national, industry-wide regulations. These disruptions are likely to continue, but by adopting a futures and a long-term mindset, we can actively imagine potential events and potential trajectories of the future, assuming that there is not just one course, so that we can build what we might call our anticipatory capabilities and be more resilient in the long term.
Thank you, Priya. A number of ideas here. This idea of understanding informal rules and norms and how that shape behaviors across the supply chain. This idea of consideration of every single link within a chain, and that being necessary to create long-term success. And this idea of building anticipatory capabilities, which is necessary for resilience for everyone. I'm going to come to you, Alex, now. You've been involved in this work from the very start, and obviously GAP has a long history of investing in this sort of activities. Tell us a bit about how GAP's current strategy aligns with the recommendations and priorities in the report, but also I'm really curious, as you were part of this process and now you've read the final report, are there suggestions and ideas that makes you consider maybe some adjustments or a rethink in how you're looking forward, taking that longer horizon that Priya talked to us about?
Christine, thank you to the whole RISE team for today, for the work, and for this question. You're right, investing in women's advancement has been a priority and way of doing business for GAP Inc. for decades now. And so on that high level, fully aligned. But in terms of our current strategy, I would say that there's a lot of points of alignment and then a few areas where the report really challenged us, which I'll get to. But where we're aligned right now, I would say GAP Inc. is in our current strategy, taking a very holistic approach at thinking about women's advancement. Our current strategy includes a portfolio of programs that intervene at different levels. So we have RISE Foundations, which of course works with women workers. We have Better Works Supervisory Skills Training Program. We also implement Better Works Workplace Cooperation Program, which strengthens worker management dialogue, as well as a gender-based violence prevention response program that we run at 100% of our factories in our supply chain. And so it's through these different programs that we really sought to address this question of what are the barriers to women's advancement? How do we take a holistic approach looking at the various different actors and spaces of intervention? On top of that, we also do implement a vendor scorecard to incentivize investment in these programs. And in 2021, set public commitments that sought to scale these programs and set time-bound targets to see positive outcomes for workers in our supply chain. So in these ways, I would say there's a lot of alignment with some of what the report is sharing. But what is new from the report, what really challenged us and is challenging us in this new strategy development process, I'd say first the question of measurement. The report has challenged our teams on how to expand how we define progress and advancement in the supply chain and how do we measure progress towards improved gender equity, improved outcomes. For example, one of our public goals tracks gender parity, which GAP Inc. has defined as women's representation in the workforce versus women's representation as supervisors. So for an example, if a factory were to have about 90% of their workers being women, they would meet our public target when 90% of their supervisors are also women, which has been an immense challenge in many different regions where we work. And so the data shared in the report highlights that. On this goal, we've made strong gains. This year in our latest impact report, which just came out last week, we were really proud to report that 40% of our suppliers, strategic suppliers, are now reporting equitable representation of women at these 2 levels. This is a huge gain. But with that said, it is one definition of progress towards gender equity. And so the challenge I think that we have as an industry is, how do we monitor progress and drive accountability at scale in a way that is holistic, in a way that is representative of what women are also desiring, and how do we work together in partnership with that definition, but in a way that does drive accountability and is scalable, because we have such a scaled business. Very lastly, and I'm probably coming up to the end of the time here, I would say also the reports call out for really addressing root drivers, as Priya mentioned as well. Deep-seated gender norms are really key to securing advancement opportunities, or equal opportunities for advancement. In our future strategy, we're also doubling down on our current investments in the prevention response of gender-based violence. We view this as really core to both basic well-being within the workplace, but also being able to have the freedom to expand and explore new leadership opportunities. So in short, I'd say the report really helped affirm a lot of what Gap Inc. has been doing, but also has prompted some really important questions for us and for the industry.
Thanks, Alex. So the willingness to kind of peel back a layer and see what's really underneath the root drivers, some of the ideas that come through, but also I think you presented as a challenge for you, a gap, but I think this is a challenge for all of us. How do we continue to move the needle forward on how we define what progress is? How do we maintain momentum? Chitra, I'm going to come to you now. Shahi is a long-term champion of workforce development. Tell us a bit about why it is that at Shahi you absolutely see women's advancement and leadership as a strategic priority for success across the business, and I'm going to ask you a question that we get from many of our partners. How do you make the case to colleagues that this absolutely should be a strategic and critical investment?
Thanks, Christina, and hello everyone, and congratulations to the RISE team for the launch of RISE new report. And directly coming to the response, at Shahi we have seen women advancement and leadership as a strategic priority, because we have seen business success, and also this is a requirement of our sustainable future. For nearly 5 decades, Shahi has prioritized empowering women through skill building programs and also financial independence. Over years, we have learned the process of collaborative action. So this is like years of experience, putting together. And accordingly, we have built systems and processes that help women to advance. In the past, and if you take around 10, 12, or 13 years back, there was no mention of advancement, leadership, training. Nobody spoke about gender. It was just routine in any export company. But if you take the recent, like 10 years or 13 years, or even the present, Shahi as such, we have created framework, we have built systems that strengthen the worker voice and also help them to advance, not just advance, but also to sustain. So over years, we have trained around 96,000 women at Shahi through soft skill program. Alex, did mention, about the lot of initiatives they do, and we did PACE program in Shahi. So that's where we started. And right now, around 9,000 women are part of the RISE initiatives. Also, apart from that, we trained workers about gender equality. We have also implemented, developed diversity, equity, and inclusion policies, and also the programs around that. We have strengthened the worker voice through our anonymous worker voice tool called Inache, which is a homegrown Shahi program, which we developed in partnership with Good Business Lab. We have also trained workers about GBVH, POSH, prevention of sexual harassment, through a program such as Be Safe, in a company. And we have also strengthened the committees through Better Workplace Cooperation program. And apart from that, we have also come up with the certification program to train, to develop the skills of workers, women as workers especially, both technical and soft skill, through programs such as Captains, E-Ways, Stitch. And through this, we have evolved over years through a collaborative approach. All this is not possible just by Shahi. We have partnered with the research agencies, we have partnered with brands, we've also partnered with non-profit organization, other stakeholders, and most importantly, worker has been the strategic pillar of all these programs. And today we have nearly 800 women in leadership position at Shahi, in a supervisory position or the leadership position. They've also scaled not just vertically, but also horizontally. We have seen women taking up the leadership position. And we also have, in future, we also have a target of achieving 60%, as against right now we have 45% in women leadership position. By 2026, 2027, we have a target of achieving 60% women leadership. And how do we achieve this? Through all this program. And also to my next question, Christina, you mentioned about how do I urge my colleagues. So I definitely urge my colleagues to invest in such programs, because it's not just a program with business, with the social impact, this does have a business impact. I want to mention a few of the programs like the soft skill program, what we have done in the past, plus the present program of RISE. We see 5% higher retention, 15% women are more likely to get promoted, 25% increase in communication skills. What else is needed? We see the retention of workers, and that has a ripple effect on efficiency. And also investing in programs such as women leadership, we call it as captains program, Stitch. We have seen 25% average income of the workers increases. And through Stitch program, we have also seen 7.3% increase in supervisor productivity, 6% higher salary growth, 15% are likely to quit. Also by investing in program like Inachi or Worker Voice tool and the Be Safe, especially talking about GBVH, we have seen overall 90% grievance satisfaction, 4% line productivity increase, 19% attrition decrease, and 12.6% absenteeism decrease. So it is a business case. Investing in workers, women, and help them advance is a business case. This is majorly going to help the reputation of the organization. It's also will include in the brand value. You'll also have a stable and engaged workforce, and also there is a financial return. So definitely invest in such programs, and RISE is one of the wonderful programs. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chitra. So Roshan, I'm going to come to you. We had from Chitra here, the business case is clear. I'd love to hear from you a little bit more about the human case on this. We heard loud and clear from women workers when we did the research that the return on investment of becoming a supervisor or engaging in some of these programs that's going to move you on to different career pathways, it's not, the return on investment for them isn't always compelling. So we're not necessarily always seeing a shared business case for women and for business. For us at RISE, and I know you share that with us at Aeropocket, it's really important to have both the perspectives of women, but also really input from women's organizations throughout the progress. Can you talk to us, Roshan, about how women's organizations and business can really partner in a meaningful way to create spaces that really helps women to step into leadership roles or into traditionally male-dominated roles, such as advanced machine operator roles?
Thank you. I am very happy to join this important discussion. From Naripokho experience, real partnership between women's organization and business must go much deeper than just doing training CSR boxes. We need trust, shared goals, and joint work, putting women's worker real life experience at the center. If we want to create a space where women can take leadership and do jobs usually done by men, like operating advanced machine, we first need to face the real problems that hold women back. These include gender roles, care work at home, limited training opportunities, and workplace that sometimes ignore or even mistreat women who try to do new type of work. So, what does real partnership look like? Start with women voices. Women workers must be involved in identifying problem and finding solution. At Naripokho, we use participatory method like gender action learning system, though these women draw their own life map, analyze challenge at home, at work, and set their goals. Business can also use such method and work with women's organization to guide this process. This is very important. Invest in skill and pathway, not just position. Many women will get trained for one job, but they don't get chance to move forward or into other department. Business and women's group can work together to design training and mentoring that prepare women for technical leadership and non-traditional roles, such as machine operation, maintenance, or quality control. This is not only about technical skill, women also need support to build confidence. Supportive workplace also needed. Leadership cannot grow while women feel unsafe or unsupported. Company need a strong system, a fair complaint mechanism, childcare, support, flexible working hours, and strict rules against harassment. Women's organizations have a lot of experience designing such safe and inclusive workplace and can support business in developing these policies and training. Also share power, not just make policy. Finally, real partnership means business must also share decision-making power. Women's organizations should be included when business strategy are made, not only when projects start. Together, we can help companies think about success not only as profit, but also fairness, well-being, and long-term growth. In short, promoting women in the supply chain is not just about hiring or promoting more women. We must create full system of support inside the workplace and in the community. This is possible when women's organization and business work together as equal partners, always guided by women's own voice and leadership. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rochelle. So Shamsul, listen to women, build with women, with women's organizations, not just for women, and do it from the beginning and maintain that relationship throughout. Your work on GEAR is that focuses on vertical advancement is clearly one of the best recognized initiatives that look at this. When we think a little bit beyond that experience, I mean, obviously we'd love to hear a bit about the GEAR experience, but when we think beyond that, how do we build on everything you've learned at GEAR? How do we build on that to promote alternative pathways, such as what Roshan just talked about, technical, more technical roles, floating jobs, green jobs? How do we build on all of that to really broaden these career pathways?
Okay, thank you so much, Christine. Let me congratulate you and your entire team for launching this important report for which suggested many recommendations regarding the further advancement of women. Okay, thank you. As before going to your questions and response, I would like to share a few of the activities about the gender equality and returns program. We call it GEAR program. This GEAR program started in 2016 in collaboration with IFC in the name of World Progression and Productivity Toolkit. After that, in 2019, we scaled it again and renamed it GEAR, Gender Equality and Returns Program. Basically, this program helps enterprises to ease career progression opportunity and also transform the gender structural barrier and support management system development, particularly internal promotion systems. What we do basically on behalf of GEAR program. GEAR program designed around 15 to 16 days direct engagement within a year. Few of the activities related with workers engagement, few of the related with the senior management. In GEAR, we formed a factory advisory committee basically, this committee consists from different head of the production, IE, HR, and compliance people who basically operate the enterprise and take the decisions. So this is the factory advisory committee. The training program, basically for the trainees, we have total 8 days training. 4 days are soft skills training and 4 days are technical skills training. You know, to manage people and production, both the skills are very required for the supervisory levels. So we have different initiatives, not only the standard gear to promoting workers to supervisory levels, we have also gear advance, meaning supervisor to line chief and technicians. And we also started a TUT program, both the advanced and standard gear, in order to capacitize the enterprises and develop soft skills and technical skills trainer at the factory level so that they can implement the gear approach. We outreach around 140 factories, including around 6 factories in EPZ. And out of the 900 trainees, around 600 promoted as a assistant supervisor or the supervisor level, including 16 as a technician. We have different brands partnership, many international brands. I think they also joined with me. So they supported us to create more opportunities for the women. You understand that basically the main advancement is vertical. You rightly said that gear program is mainly vertical career advancement. Recently, we started mentorship services as well, and we are open to start the horizontal thinking as well. You know, the last year we had a conversation with RISE colleagues, partners, etc. So based on that, from this year, we started this mentorship services, and we also noticed that the soft skills and technical skills training is not adequate. Supportive environment is very necessary for the women. That's why the mentor really helped the mentees to exchange their learning, trialing in the production line for like 4 to 6 months. After that, they can promote. So there is only an exchange of learning as well. So as Chitra mentioned, different, and Laura also mentioned that the impacts of this women leadership program are huge. And this is not an only investment. This creates a lot of business benefits and the individual benefits as well. Our Oxford research said that there are at least 5% line efficiency, at least 10% defects reduced in the specific line, which led by the women supervisors. And there are other workplace issues positively impacted after the implementation. Now, I would like to respond to your question. Yes, vertical advances is not enough. I think horizontal thinking is also important as a complementary approach for women leadership development, particularly career advancement. Like I can explain at least 3 key areas focusing on the technical skills job. You know, this is not only the vertical. There are many positions and roles are there. For example, automation technician, like the mechanics, electrician position, a pattern maker, and other different sector, different process. There are a lot of high salaried job which women can really advance in these areas.
Mm.
On the other hand, you see the not only the operator should be promoted as a supervisors. Why not they go cross-functional leadership? Like a operator can be like the IE department, like an officer, and right, like technician, IE officer, like in other area like fire safety officer. Why not? Women can do that as well. So green job is a new area, and this is very important area. Also circularity, waste management, solar energy in various climate adaptive areas, women can also lead in different roles. So,
Thank you.
so in that areas, Christine, just I would like to add one line. The
Okay.
international brands and manufacturing groups, they can work together, particularly the mapping, the roadmap, not only the ambition target per year. So this should be a realistic target, and brands and suppliers can work together. Another thing I think that like the same or common platform, like all international brands should come and work together to help the suppliers that without duplication of different CSR efforts. So
Thank
this
you.
is so important. Yeah,
Thank
thank
you,
you. Over to you,
Shamsul.
Christine.
Thank you, Shamsul. I'm seeing that questions are coming into the Q&A, and I want to make sure we've got time for that. But I'm going to give each of you a really difficult challenge here of in less than 30 seconds, each of you think about what you think is the most important action that any of us can take right now to advance this. We've talked about many different things here. There are many recommendations in the report, but if you were going to just pick one, what can we do now? What should we do now? I'm going to come, and you've got 30 seconds each. So this is going to be really quick fire, but I want to make sure we hear from our guests here today. So Shamsul, I'm going to come to you first. In just one sentence, what is the most important action that we can take right now?
Yeah, thank you. As I mentioned, that brands, factory senior management, and mid management, not only the HR and compliance people, but also IE production, they should work together and they should own this and develop a roadmap.
Thank you. That was a very succinct response, Rashan. In less than 30 seconds, what is the one most important thing we can do now? You're on mute, Rashan.
Okay. I think so, but it is very important that our business owner they are not thinking about worker development. They are thinking about profit. So this is very important to recognize the women interest and also experience, also their leadership. And also we ensure the access to education, digital tool, and safe workplace, especially for marginalized and low-income women. So use this, they access this type of information and use these issues. And skill development, not only technical and digital skill, also leadership. Leadership is very important. Negotiation skill, also financial literacy. Then finally, I want to say that recognize as a leader, as a women worker, as a leader. This is recognized all working business. Business sector also create a space for the women, so recognize the leadership women worker. So that is for me.
Thank you. Recognition that women certainly can be leaders and think about it broadly. Priya.
I would say to adopt a mindset of collective responsibility around this issue, because before we can actually initiate collaboration or design a roadmap, we need to be on board with the idea that this is good for all the stakeholders involved, and this is critical to do.
Thank you, Priya. Chitra, the one thing we can do now, most important thing now.
Yeah, need to focus on the shared risk management and partnership. Like we have to move beyond transactional to true partnership, sharing risk and rewards of investing in women. And also for the supplier, like prioritize comprehensive skill development, like in non-traditional and technical roles, like actually advance and take them to the, like machine operator or, like difficult roles, and not just stick on to the education, but move beyond that. Also for buyers action is like offer long-term commitments, flexible terms, financial investment to suppliers who are working on women advancement. So this is what, and also the collaborative approach. That's what I think. Thank you.
Thank you. In 30 seconds, that was a whole practical thing about how you do a deal for shared responsibility. Alex, final word from you. What is the most important action we can take now?
I would say investing in women's safety and respect in the workplace. This is first and foremost important if we want to respect women's well-being and also ensure opportunities for advancement. And join conversations like these. Tagging on to my colleagues, we need collective action to address these deeply held systemic barriers. Joining these conversations, joining organizations like RISE is critical for going to move the lever and see improved outcomes for women in our supply chain and beyond.
Thank you, Alex. Laura, I think we've got a couple of questions that's come in. Do you want to take us through the Q&A, please?
Yes, thanks everyone for your questions. I tried to club most of the questions, so I'll go back to you, Alex. There's a very interesting question on how you integrate these gender equality interventions within your purchasing practices, and I think you mentioned about a scorecard that Gap has. And they're asking also if there are any reward systems towards suppliers that implement these sort of actions towards women's advancement.
Yeah, great question. Very important question. So yes, we do have a vendor scorecard that incentivizes and rewards investment in our programs, particularly PACE or RISE foundations. Our suppliers know that this is so core to the way that Gap Inc. does business, and so we want to reflect it in who we do business with. That's one. In terms of purchasing practices, it's a really great question. We have a partnership with Better Buying Institute where we're learning about what are suppliers hearing about our practices? How can we then act upon that and improve our practices so that we do ensure the enabling environment needed for good working conditions? So that in brief my response.
Wonderful, Alex. Thank you so much for that. And then Priya, I'm coming back to you here. There is a question about, could you give more examples about anticipatory capabilities? That sounds like a very fancy concept, so I'm going to club it with another question here that it's very concrete in terms of the future of work and how the industry and suppliers are working on preparing women for the future of work, for the jobs that AI is taking over in the factory. So how can you connect those two concepts about anticipatory capabilities and the future of work for women?
Well, I don't have as much expertise as some of the other panelists when it comes to what's actually happening within suppliers and with the relationships with buyers. So I'll perhaps leave someone else to speak to that. But in terms of anticipatory capabilities, there is a discipline called futures or futures in foresight. And that is something that Forum for the Future employs and brought into this initiative. And it relates to looking at the future not as written, not as following a single path, but looking at potential trajectories of the future, multiple. So thinking about the future as having multiple possibilities. And there are different tools that we use to do this. One of them is called horizon scanning. So it is what it sounds like, looking across the horizon at conditions now to see what the signals of what change could be are. Sometimes they exist in the niche. Sometimes they are gaining momentum but haven't fully taken gone into the mainstream. So some of the signals that we've seen relate to, for example, climate change. We know that extreme heat is affecting workers. We know that increasingly the exposure to climate-induced disasters is going to be part of the calculation on the part of suppliers when it comes to the resilience of the workforce, the sustainability of the workforce, who can be expected to come and which factories will be able to keep their doors open. If people are working under untenable conditions, then that's not something that could be continued. So by looking ahead and thinking about what the climate trajectory is going to be and what needs to be put in place in terms of cooling facilities, in terms of breaks for workers, in terms of work hours, so that these adjustments can be made, then there's a greater chance of having resilience in terms of production and also better outcomes for workers in terms of well-being, mental health, community health, and so that's an example. But anticipatory capabilities can range from issues related to climate to automation, thinking about which of the roles within factories are likely to be most affected, how are they likely to be affected, which workers are likely to be affected, and what the domino effects could be. That will help suppliers to build that preparedness and ensure that upskilling in different areas can happen so that the workforce can be retained and people can continue to have job satisfaction without necessarily feeling a huge loss from automation. But perhaps someone else could chime in with more context specificity.
That was great, Priya. Thank you so much. Very, very clear. I think we have time for one question more, and I'll go to you, Chitra. There's a question around the community work. So the person asking this question is saying that most of the interventions focus on the workplace, on training workers and staff members at the factory level. But since we're speaking a bit about a systemic approach, it's important also to work in the community and to tackle social norms in the community. So how at Shahi do you see this? And if you have any examples of work that you have done between the workplace and the community?
Yeah, thank you so much. And this question is from Kamrul. Hi, Kamrul. Hope you're doing good. So basically, like I also want to tell about Shahi, like the program we do is not just limited to a factory, but we also have programs in the community. We are also guided by corporate social responsibility. So like, there are levels of many other programs, what we do in community. I can just talk about menstrual health. We have, implemented in several villages and, mostly in the communities around our factories. And we have also seen that 71% of the women felt company care, 22% increase in sanitary pads. So just giving an example, like how the programs are not just limited for the factory workers, but also we are taking it outside for the community. Yeah, and we do see there's a huge impact. The women also feel that the company cares for it, and not just for them, but for their family also. There's the ripple effect back on the factory too.
Wonderful, Chitra. Thank you. Rokshan, I'm wondering if you want to add something there. You have like big experience working and engaging with women.
Naripaku also working with the community level, and we have experienced that community people and business organization, they jointly develop for worker how they save the on the way they are going to the factory and also community. So that is the one example, and another is we need to joint strategy, business organization and women organization for worker well-being. Thank you.
Wonderful, Rokshan. Thank you so much. So we have 4 minutes left. If we can go to our last slide, and thank you so much to all of our panelists. Thank you, Christine, for moderating these panelists. We heard a lot about collaboration, but also, how we bring this systemic approach to practice. Great examples from companies, from leading industry programs as gear on how to do this in practice, and of course, how to bring women workers and their representative as part of this work and to co-design those interventions together. So thank you so much for all your inputs. Here you just see our blog and our report that has been shared also in the chat. And if you want to continue the conversation, if you have any ideas on how we can engage and collaborate, the idea is we can pilot some of these interventions that we have put together in the report in the upcoming months. So please get in touch with me. And then I also wanted to give you a quick snapshot of what's coming for RISE in the next few months, in case you're interested in joining us in other topics beyond women's advancement and leadership. We're going to be in the London Climate Week. We also have a member collaboration session to all of our members that are joining today Please do join us on July in this session. We also have a public webinar very soon in August, where we will be launching another report on climate resilience and gender just industry. We talk about that today too, because of course all these topics are interconnected and interlinked. And finally, Christine will be in the Sustainable Apparel and Textile Conference in the US. So we will keep you posted on insights from that conference too. And here you have the QR for the events page. Thank you so much, everyone. And thanks for all your collaboration during this process. Have a wonderful afternoon, evening, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.